Thanks. So we were talking about prearranged rides.
That's correct.
And I'd asked you if you feel there's a demand for prearranged rides outside of the prearranged rides that Yellow Cab offers.
Yes, and I don't believe there is.
Okay, and if you just take a look at your deposition on page 46, I asked you, I'll give you a second. I asked you if there was a need for prearranged calls outside of the airport, bus depot, and medical appointments. You with me?
Yes.
Your answer was, I don't know if there is a need for it. We do occasionally receive requests for it. Is that right?
That's correct.
Is that accurate?
Yes.
If you receive requests for it, does that mean there's a public need for it?
As I said there, you have to draw the line somewhere as to, our normal time we pick up people and get them dropped off is within a half an hour. That's our average. And, it's something I am willing to take a look at. And it's very possible we could do that down the road.
You testified today there's no public need for it.
I don't think it's a pressing public need, I guess.
Then why would you do anything about it?
If it becomes more apparent that it is a pressing public need.
Okay, I'll just ask you one more. Do you feel that when you get requests for something that demonstrates there's a public need for it?
We receive a lot of requests, and some of them unreasonable. Some people call us to find out what time of day it is and what day it is. That happens.
How about requests for taxi service?
Yes, we do receive requests for taxi service, obviously.
Do you feel like it's your job to respond to the public need for prearranged calls outside of the times you currently operate?
I think that we run on a demand and response basis, and I think that is sufficient at meeting the public need.
Okay. A second ago, you were explaining to me the process you go through when you determine how many cabs to put on the street. You said you look at your daily logs to see how many calls you're getting and your response times. Does that daily log keep track of people who call and then find out that a wait time is too long and don't request service?
No, the daily log does not record that if that happens. I would rely on my dispatchers for passing that information along to me.
Do you ever sit down on a monthly or annual basis with your dispatcher and go over the number of times that happens?
No, but I'm down there every day, and I talk to virtually every dispatcher that's on duty virtually every day. Sometimes I miss a day with a certain dispatcher, but I'll talk to them the next day, and they keep me apprised of problems we're having. If we are having problems, meeting the public need.
Did you ever, okay, so you do it on a daily basis?
Well, I'm talking to our dispatchers
Right.
every day, yes.
Do you ever look at trends, like over the 25-year course since you've been running this business, have you looked at trends in terms of whether the number of calls that come in that where somebody calls and they don't request service because the wait time is too long? Have you looked at trends where that's going up or down over the course of the 25 years you've been operating?
No, it's not. It's something that really doesn't happen very often.
The other thing that you mentioned when I was talking about the number of cabs you put out is that you look at your revenue.
That's correct.
Okay. Isn't that more a reflection of the money that Yellow Cab is making as opposed to customer needs?
Could you state the first part of that again?
Sure.
Please, Ryan?
Yeah. Isn't revenue a reflection of the amount of money your business is making?
It's how much money we're taking in, not making, but yes.
Thank you. Appropriate correction. But it doesn't necessarily represent the public demand for taxi cab service.
I think it's a very close correlation.
Have you studied that and looked at it? Or are you just guessing or speculating?
I would object and ask council to let Mr. Gray answer the question before moving on to another question.
I think the witness has already indicated that he looks at the revenue that comes in during over a period of time to determine how much demand there is for the service. I think he has answered that question.
He has. And I'd like to follow that up and ask him if he knows whether revenue, has he done any sort of analysis to determine whether his revenue tracks public demand for taxi cab service, or if that's a guess.
Is your question whether or not the revenue reflects the amount of calls that are coming in? Is that correct?
That'd be a good way to put it, yes.
Then ask the question.
Does your revenue reflect the number of calls that are coming in,
Yes, it does.
including the calls where people don't request service?
It does not, the revenue does not obviously account for people that, have called and decided that, maybe the wait would be too long. As I said, I believe I said before, that's a rather isolated, very uncommon thing for us to run into. We do run into it, but it's not like it's, it happens 8 or 10 times a day,
How many times is an acceptable number of times for you?
You don't want to lose any customers. You want to, you would like it to be to zero. But, we do receive requests from people who call up, we tell them we've got somebody fairly close to them, it'll be 10 minutes, and they say, that's too long. I mean, we do get that. Obviously when it's going to be longer, a half an hour, for other people, they'll say that's too long. But I think we've had one time, we'll have somebody there within 5 minutes, and they say that's not acceptable for me. The public is fickle at times, and we do our best to meet their needs.
Okay. And outside of people who have what we could maybe characterize as unrealistic demands on your business, but people who are just requesting cab service, they don't say within 10 minutes, but within a half an hour, what's an acceptable number of times for you that you're not able to meet those demands?
I would like it to be zero. But occasionally, because of the conditions I cited before with traffic and weather and, just the way the calls come in sometimes, we sometimes can't meet it. But, I would like to say zero, but it's the nature of the transportation business, trying to get around and navigate around this town especially. Missoula has some of the worst traffic in the state. I was in Billings last year, and I thought traffic moved much smoother and easier than for me when I was in Billings.
I'm listening. Are you saying then that it's kind of out of your hands then, on whether you can meet the demand because there's too many things going on in Missoula?
I feel we meet the demand. As I said, there's times when your wait times are going to be outside that 15 to 30 minutes. And I wish it would be zero, but it's inevitable.
Do you believe that there's a need for fuel-efficient hybrid taxi service in Missoula?
I've looked at it. I stated before, I looked at running vehicles on compressed natural gas back in the mid-90s. They were, obviously there was no hybrid technology at the time. But this hybrid technology is fairly new. And when I ran into a company that was operating hybrids in the Tri-Cities back in December, it got my interest piqued. And Missoula is a very environmentally conscious town. And I say that's something I was trying to address back in the mid-90s. We just couldn't quite get it done. There were a number of factors. And one of those, of course, was I had major surgery and it set us back on our schedule. But and it wasn't too awful long after that Montana Power got out of the power business, and they were the folks that were partners with me in that. And I was talking to on that. They were the ones that operated the CNG fueling station.
I'll ask that question again. Do you believe there's a public demand for hybrid fuel-efficient taxi service in Missoula?
There is a demand from some people, yes.
Okay. And are you planning on adding a hybrid to your fleet?
Yes, I am.
So what will your fleet be comprised of at that point?
Our fleet will be comprised of, we're just going to add the hybrid to our fleet. Our fleet will go from 6 vehicles to 7 vehicles at that time.
Okay. Do you know approximately the gas mileage of the miles per gallon those other 6 vehicles will get?
They get between 12 and 15 miles to the gallon on average, depending on how much highway running they're doing. Whether they're running basically just town calls or whether they're getting out and going to the airport. Maybe we're on any country trips, but right between 12 and 15 is the average.
And then, so you'll have 1 hybrid in your fleet and 6 vehicles that get 12 to 15 miles to the gallon?
That's correct.
Okay. So if I call Yellow Cab, I might get a hybrid, or I might get something that gets 12 to 15 miles to the gallon?
That's right.
Okay. Have you heard testimony today from any witnesses that say they'll no longer call Yellow Cab for service?
I have heard a couple of folks say that, yes.
And if Mr. Murray is granted a license and operates and he serves those people, will that affect your revenue at all?
I've got those particular couple of people you're talking about that they won't ride with us, and yet they'd ride with him. That would not affect our revenue, no.
So we've heard from a pretty long list of people today. Granted, it's small in comparison to the total population of Missoula. But people who've said they've missed appointments, they no longer find your business to be reliable, and they've found that your business doesn't meet their needs. And you, I take it, and tell me if I'm wrong, but do you still maintain you're meeting all the public need?
We think we are, yes.
You think it's possible to fix a problem you don't know exists?
The theoretical question, no.
I don't have any further questions.
I'm not really sure. Should we go for cross-examination at this point?
That's what I would suggest.
Or we could? Okay, fine.
I think if we get it wrapped up now.
Mr. Wilmore,
I'm going to want to cross him on yours as well.
Well, I think you can do that in your redirect.
I have an additional shipper witness.
We understand. As long as you don't mind if I do again.
That will be perfectly acceptable.
Thank you.
How long has Yellow Cab been in service?
I've got a picture of the first Yellow Cab in Missoula, I think it's 1919, parked in front of the train people downtown.
And how long have you been in Missoula personally?
I was born and raised in Missoula. I was fourth generation Western Montana. My father moved here from down in Bitterroot, and I lived here all my life.
And to your knowledge, has there ever been a diamond cab or a checker cab in Missoula?
No, my father operated some checker cabs, but they were operated under yellow cab. Checker cab was the particular model of taxi, but they went out of business.
And that was prior to 1982?
Yes, it was.
Now, we're here because partly you've objected to Green Taxi's application for motor carrier authority. Does their requested authority conflict with your authority?
Yes, it does.
And what authority do you have?
We have authority to transport passengers in the city of Missoula and a radius of 50 miles, 50 miles being from the federal building.
And how would the grant of authority to Green Taxi affect the value of your business?
It would decrease it, and I guess I spoke earlier. If their projections are anywhere close, doing roughly $15,000 a month worth of business, we're doing right around 45 now, gross revenue. Basically, a third of our business would be gone, and it's been a challenging environment the last few years, and this year is no exception. I don't know how long we could operate 24 hours a day, 365 days a year under that environment.
Would the value of your company be decreased?
Yes, it would.
Would you possibly lay off employees?
Yes, we would have to probably lay off certain driver shifts, probably a dispatcher, maybe two. I don't know exactly how many layoffs we would have, but inevitably we would have to. I don't have the resources to keep to run up a whole bunch more ready.
And would there possibly be less vehicles on the road from Yellow Cab then?
That would, if they had, say 2 vehicles, and I would just guess that I'm not supposed to guess, excuse me. Most days, we're operating 3 vehicles until 1 o'clock in the afternoon. We put on our 4th. And today, I'm sure that as soon as the 4th driver came on, they sent somebody home because they didn't have enough business to keep the drivers busy. I have to make up the difference in their wages if they can't make minimum.
And how would the harm to Yellow Cab affect the Missoula public?
Well, I think that if there would be times when there would probably be no taxi cabs operating. Their proposal is to not run between 3 in the morning and 6 in the morning. There are a lot of times when, especially during the week, we might get 1 or 2 calls between 3 in the morning and 6 in the morning. And, it's not profitable to stay open that time. I would have to look at, like I say, cutting the number of shifts, cutting the number of drivers. I would hope not to do that, but it's just a matter of economics. I'm afraid I would be forced to.
So ultimately, the Missoula community would have less service from Yellow Cab.
That's correct.
Now, there was some discussion that Mr. Schaefer took you through on how you decide how many vehicles you put out on the road. Is it true that you base the amount of vehicles you put on the road on your 25 years of service?
Yes, that's correct.
And I want to go back a little bit to your financial situation and what it's been like in the past few years. I'm handing you what's been labeled as proposed Exhibit 205. Can you tell me what that document is?
That's our annual report to the Public Service Commission. Excuse me. For the year of 2003.
And is that a true and accurate copy?
It sure appears to be, yes.
I would move to admit Exhibit 205.
It will be admitted as evidence.
And can you tell me what Yellow Cab's profit in 2003 was?
In 2003, there was no profit. We had a loss of $34,737.
And now I'm handing you proposed 206. Can you tell me what that document is?
That is our report filed with the commission for the year of 2004.
True and accurate copy?
Yes.
I'd move to admit.
So good.
And can you tell me what the profit in 2004 for Yellow Cab was?
Looks like a little bit different format here. Excuse me just a second. Yeah, there, in 2004, we had a loss, not a profit. Our loss in 2004 was $41,794.
So a loss in 2003 and a loss in 2004?
That's correct.
And you proposed 207. Can you tell me what that is?
Yes, this is our annual report filed to the commission for the year of 2005.
True and accurate copy?
Yes.
I'd move to admit.
It is so admitted.
Can you tell me what the profit in 2005 was?
In 2005, we also had a loss. The loss was $12,929.
Proposed 208. Can you tell me what that is?
That is our report for the past year, for 2006.
True and accurate copy?
Yes, it is.
I would move to admit.
No objection.
It will be admitted.
And what was Yellow Cab's profit in 2006?
We did make a profit in 2006. We made $8,902.
And so was 2006 the first time this millennia that Yellow Cab turned a profit?
Yes, it is.
So based on that information, do you believe that the grant of authority to Green Taxi would harm Yellow Cab?
Yes, it would. I don't see how it could not.
And what sort of hardships have you gone through to keep Yellow Cab going?
We have taken on a lot of debt through various lending institutions, 3 that come to mind. And in late 2004, my wife had some income property. We had 2 duplexes over on Larkinwood, and we sold that income property and paid the capital gains on it, and took the proceeds, which were roughly $100,000, and put them into the business to keep it going.
Now, have you done some things recently to meet the need of the public?
We have added our added shifts, 1 regular shift on Friday and Saturday nights, and we also have another. Actually, it's a dispatcher who volunteered to drive for that 3, 4, 5 hour stretch when we get the bar rush on Friday and Saturday nights, and I really appreciated that help from them, and I thank them for it. But it's actually going to end up, the wages that that dispatcher will have to all be reported as driver's wages for our workers' compensation. And And so that is in effect cost us money as opposed to the amount of revenue that he will bring in for those days. The rate goes from, I think the office personnel rate is something like 67 cents per 100, and the driver rate is about $7.85 per 100. And we're going to have to pay that workers' compensation rate on all of his wages made, because the state fund, they will not, they have a word for it, but anyway, the rates are not divisible, I think it is. I may be incorrect there, but at any rate, since they work, even if they only take in, make say $500 in wages driving, and make $5,000 wages dispatching, you have to pay the driver's rate on all of their income, not just on the driver's share.
And when did you add those 2 additional shifts? Friday and
We
Saturday?
started with the Maggot Fest, which was last weekend of April. That's always been a very busy weekend, and this year it wasn't really quite as busy as some of the past ones have seemed to be. At least that was the input I got back from our drivers and our dispatchers.
And are you also planning on purchasing a hybrid?
Yes, I am.
I'm handing you Exhibit 212 proposed. Can you tell me what that exhibit is?
It's a verification of the order that I placed for a 2007 Camry Hybrid. We ordered that on February 26th this year. I didn't get a contract or anything. The gentleman, Mike Zachariasen, is the sales manager of Bitterroot Toyota. So I've known him for 40 years, and I bought other vehicles from him. And we didn't feel the need to get anything in writing. I guess I'll do some of my stuff kind of old-fashioned.
And is that a true and accurate copy of the letter that
Yes, it is.
I would move to admit?
No objection.
It'll be entered into the record.
And when is the hybrid vehicle coming? Approximately?
He thinks delivery date should be right around the middle of June. That midweek of June, I don't have a calendar, but it's like 14th through the 20th, or right in that range.
So you've ordered the hybrid, you're just waiting for it to arrive?
That's correct. It had to be special ordered because all the hybrids came with sunroofs, all the Camrys. And sunroof will not work for us. We have to put the top light on there. And so it had to be special ordered. It was something he didn't know when he just saw that all the ones he had sunroofs, and he was going to other dealers trying to find them, and he ultimately found out that they all came with sunroofs, the Camrys. And so it's being built. It was built earlier this week is what he told me.
Now, there's been some testimony about response times and times of pickups, and do you believe that under 30 minutes from the time an individual places a call to the time they're dropped off at a destination is a reasonable time?
Yes, I do.
And you indicated earlier that you did some calculations, and on March 31st, the average time was 28.8 minutes.
That's correct.
So do you believe that was a reasonable time?
Yes, I do.
Then you also indicated that on May 5th, did the similar calculation, and from the time that an individual placed a call to the time they were dropped off to their destination, the average time was 28.72 or 73.
That's correct.
And also on May 5th, you had approximately 40 more calls.
Yeah, it was 24% more calls that day. And we were able to get a little bit better response time. You know, I think getting picked up and dropped off within a half hour average is actually very good.
And that was after you added an additional vehicle.
That's correct.
And so you were able to provide 40 additional rides and still keep the time within 30 minutes.
That's correct.
And you said it was the end of April that you added some additional vehicles to meet the need. Have you also added vehicles in the past to meet the need?
Yes, we have, and it was 2001 or 2002, I think 2002, that we added a fourth shift, not an additional vehicle, but an additional shift for the Friday and Saturday nights. I did it was the last time I added a vehicle. We just used to have 5 on with our insurance as of in the middle part of 2005, I added a 6th vehicle on with insurance. I remember it real well because the insurance bill was $6,200, and that was in June of '05. We expanded to 6, and when we get the delivery of the Camry, we'll be going to 7.
So do you think this adding of vehicles shows your willingness and ability to meet the public's need?
Yes, I do.
On average, how many customers does Yellow Cab provide service to each month?
On average, our total number of passengers is right near 6,000 passengers a month on average.
So about 72,000 passengers a year.
That's correct.
Now, there's been an issue raised by Mr. Schaefer about prearranged pickups. You currently do time calls or prearranged pickups?
Yes, we do.
And that's for bus depot, airport, hospital, medical transport.
Yes, we do.
Have you considered doing other prearranged transports?
Yes, we have.
And I guess why haven't you opted to do other prearranged transports?
We feel we meet the public need right now, but it's something we're willing to take a look at. To my knowledge, when it comes to the bar business, that a lot of this focused on those evening bar rush times. I don't know of a company in the state that provides prearranged time calls to bars. There may be one, but I don't know of one. I would think it'd be in one of the smaller locales.
And if the PSC determines that there's a public need for prearranged transports, are you willing to do prearranged pickups?
Yes, I am.
But you currently don't feel there's a need for prearranged outside these services you currently provide?
That's correct.
Now, there's also an issue about cab sharing. I think you responded to it. And so there was a complaint back in 1996,
That's correct.
and that's the only complaint that you're aware of.
That was the only one until today.
So one customer out of approximately 800,000.
Well, that's a very approximate, 800,000. Yes.
And I believe you said you consider a timely response to be 15 to 30 minutes,
That's correct.
and that's to respond, not for the completion of the ride.
That's correct.
And on average, your customers are at their destination within 30 minutes.
Yes, on average, they are.
And so do you consider wait times to be a problem?
I'm going to object. It assumes facts that aren't in the record. I think we've heard testimony that his customers get there within 30 minutes on certain days, 2 specific days that we've talked about. But if we heard, I don't think there's evidence on the record that all of his customers get to their location within 30 minutes or on average.
I believe my question was if you considered wait times to be a problem.
We will allow the question on wait time.
Do you consider wait times to be a problem?
No, I'm not normally, no.
And do you ever receive complaints from passengers?
Yes, I, occasionally receive complaints from passengers. Not a lot. It's not, I guess, expression in the hearing is that, we have a major bunch of complaints every day. Complaints on average, one every month or 2, maybe 8 to 10 a year.
So if we said 10 a year, that'd be 10 complaints out of 72,000 passengers.
That's correct.
And that's about a fraction of 1% of the passengers yellow cab hauls.
That's correct.
Do you feel you're currently meeting the public need?
Yes, I do.
If additional need is determined, are you willing to meet that need?
Yes, we're willing to do whatever we have to do to meet the public need.
And can you meet that need?
I believe we can.
And do you believe if there's a public need for additional service, it could be met as well by yellow cab as by green taxi's proposed service?
Yes, I do.
I have no further questions.
Question for staff?
I do not, thank you.
I have a question. Was it your testimony just a bit earlier that you sold an income property independent of the company and loaned the money to the company?
Yes,
Is that correct?
that's correct.
Is that what shows up on your statement as other current liabilities?
No.
Which statement are you
I'm
referring to?
not.
It is for the year 2006.
If I can hand him a copy so
It's page 4.
No, I don't believe the money that we put into the business is listed under that other current liabilities. I think is basically the debt we have taken on that we are servicing.
If you have loaned money to the company, where does it show up on the statement?
I guess, under, well, the accountant told me that it increases our base, yes, and we didn't write a formal note out. We just put the money into it, and I might have the wrong term there as to whether that base is correct, but our basis, that's what the accountant told me. And I say we didn't basically just write out a note for it. I'm not real sure on that, you know.
But it should show up as liability on your statement, should it not?
You know, it might be in there, but it just seems to me that if the money we put into the business was a liability, I would really have to ask my accountant about it. I really would.
I'd like to move on to your employee handbook.
Yes.
Do you have a copy of that?
I don't know that I do.
It was offered as evidence in the record. I have it here, but I'll show you this if you're not.
It was
familiar.
introduced in Discovery.
Yes. In Discovery. Your employee handbook refers to a program called Home Free.
That's correct.
Is that program's operative currently?
Yes, it is.
The question is, given the testimony we've heard today about the wait times in Missoula at closing bars, is the Home Free program working?
Yes, it is.
So some of those calls at 2 o'clock in the morning are based on the certificates granted under Home Free, is that?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Do you feel that your response to that program has been adequate?
Yes, I was on the original, I was one of the original folks before that founded the Home Free program, that got the Home Free program going. And since we started that program in 1987, it was started in St. Patrick's Day, We've given over 50,000 people rides home at no cost to themselves. And, we were lauded for it by the police and sheriff's department here in Missoula. I think we've done an adequate job, a very good job of servicing the home free program.
That's all I had. Is there any further questions?
Yes,
Okay. Direct, please.
thank you. Mr. Gray, did you hear Randy Boline's testimony this morning, the gentleman from Community Medical Center?
Yes, it did.
Did you hear him say that out of 1,500 calls that he received in 1 month, that 40 of them had a problem related to that call?
I heard his testimony. I don't think he said 1,500 in a month. I think he said 150 calls. If I'm correct.
Of course, I don't have the record for me. Well,
Do you want me to interject?
no, I'll strike that. Did you hear him state that that Community Medical Centers decided to cancel their contract with Yellow Cab, or their arrangement with Yellow Cab?
Well, yeah, he testified that they were not paying for the people's rides out to their rehab facility, period. They canceled that whole program.
Did you hear him
And that
state?
included their own vehicles that were operating. We were just basically a fill-in for their own vehicles. And that's how it started, and we'd help 1 or 2 people every other day or so for them, was how that started. And then we ended up hauling sometimes as many as a dozen or 15, because they thought the gals that were doing the dispatching out there thought we could get to them better than their own shuttle drivers.
Did you hear him state that one of the factors in the Community Medical Services decision to terminate that arrangement with you was the level of service that the Yellow Cab was providing?
I guess I don't recall hearing that. I'm sure it's on the record. I might have missed that. I just don't recall that myself. If you said it so, I'm not debating that it was said, but I missed that particular part of his testimony.
If he said that, would that mean that poor services resulted in a decreased revenue for your business?
I guess that's that man's opinion, and it's definitely not hauling those people to community is going to decrease our revenue.
Are you confident you get all of the complaints that are made by consumers in Missoula? You
No.
personally?
No.
Why is that?
Just, I mean, a lot of people complain, when it happens at night. You're dealing with that volatile mix of, young people with lots of booze in them. Many have been overserved. And some of those people, alcohol's a depressant. And, some of those people are going to complain. I sure don't hear all those. A lot of our drivers do. But, in fairness to them, it's difficult for them to differentiate between what's a valid complaint and somebody that's just, aggravated because their girl took off with somebody else or whatever.
Do you have a process for people in your cabs, whether they're drunk or not, to bring their complaints? Do you have a comment card or anything in your cab?
No, we don't.
Have you ever assessed your company's service to determine whether you're providing good customer service?
I guess other than, of being down there pretty much 7 days a week and talking to my dispatchers and my drivers, that's who I rely on for my input on the customers. I'm not out there with it. I've not done a formal study. that's what you're talking about.
Did you hear Mr. Zeiler's testimony today?
Yes, I did.
And he stated that he told you, he brought some customer complaints to your attention, and you responded, "My customers are fine."
I would object that this is outside the scope.
Due to the rather odd circumstances of this witness being, having been called Mr. Schaefer, I'm going to allow the question. But please be careful how far you go here.
Look. Do you recall Mr. Zeiler's testimony?
Yes, I do.
Okay. His testimony was that he brought customer complaints to your awareness.
That was his testimony, yes.
And his testimony also was that your response was, "My customers are fine."
That was his testimony, that's correct.
Was that
was
testimony?
not my response.
Okay. What was your response?
Mr. Zeiler brought me several rather vague complaints, usually about stories of, that he'd heard from some customer that they had been overcharged by one of the night drivers or something, and I never got anything real concrete from it. I did, I guess, on one story, a complaint from a gal over on South 14th Street, and I did some research into that particular complaint and talked to our driver and found out that there was a little bit more to the story than what she had told Mr. Zeiler.
Did you take his concern seriously?
I try and take all my driver's input seriously.
Did you take his concern seriously?
Not as serious as I would have from some other drivers.
Do you think that good customer service breeds good business?
Yes, I do.
And you've stated that you haven't reviewed your company's business for the quality of customer service you're providing?
Other than, as I stated, constant input from my drivers and the dispatchers that are out there.
You think customer service affects your bottom line?
Of course it does.
Well, then why is it that you don't do a more comprehensive review and take your drivers' concerns about customer service seriously?
Objection, argumentative.
We have ample evidence in the record at this point about Mr. Gray's approach to customer service, and I think we should move on to another subject.
Can I reference protestants exhibit I believe it's 205. Is there a copy for Mr. Gray?
I'll hand him the original if that's all right, court reporter.
So, Mr. Gray, this is your annual report from 2003.
That's correct.
Okay. Going to the page, the income statement, I think it's page 3. Can you tell me where on that page your salary and your wife's salary is on there?
And I'll object as relevance, and we're outside the scope.
I have to confess, I didn't hear the question. Would you repeat it, please?
My question is, I wanted him to point out where his salary and his wife's salary is on this page. And you introduced these exhibits, so I think it's within the scope.
Well, then I renew my objection on relevance.
Mr. Gray has argued that his business is on the teetering point. And I'm just curious on what, I'd like to examine that assumption.
Yeah, our, oh, excuse me.
This question comes up constantly at the Public Service Commission. In this state, personal compensation is regarded as private information. Therefore, I will sustain the objection.
Thank you. Have you ever assessed your business for ways to cut costs?
Yes.
When?
I mean, we constantly look at all the costs. There's no getting around it. You try and buy your gas at the cheapest price. You try and buy your, all your supplies you use get the best value for your dollar. It's ingrained, but constantly do that with everything.
Have you ever assessed your business for ways to increase your revenues?
Yes. I guess an actual, you're constantly looking at ways to increase revenues.
What have you looked at? What have you looked at?
Basically, I've looked at one of the things that got us over the hump the last year was we do more air freight and air courier deliveries. And the majority of those are done by myself with a little help from my wife. And that's been one of the things that's really helped us out. Our drivers do very little of the, once in a while they'll make a late night pickup for us at the hospital or something that's air freight or air courier related. But I see that as a way to grow. That's a difficult industry too.
Mr. Murray's certificate, should he be granted a certificate, would not conflict with that business.
Not at all. No, that's completely deregulated. All package air cargo delivery can be done by anybody that can get any clients.
And you've stated it's your opinion that if Mr. Murray's granted a license that it's going to result in layoffs for your business.
That's correct.
Is that an educated guess, or how would you characterize that estimation?
Well, I guess it's probably like that's a very educated guess, but it's inevitable. I don't see how, when we can't even hardly keep 3 vehicles busy during the day. Witness the testimony or the comments from a driver of ours here today, 3 calls in 6 hours. If they're out, operating another vehicle or 2, there's not enough business to go around. I think it's, Missoula's not big enough to support 2 healthy taxi companies. That's my opinion.
Did you hear the testimony from Bob Giordano when he referred to the city's transportation plan update, the projected population increase of 25,000 people?
I saw what it was, projected to be for like 2025, yes.
Right. And did you see the exhibit, I think 105 from Missoula International Airport that showed numbers of people coming in and out of Missoula going up every year?
Yes, the airlines are bringing more people through the airport here. It's been increasing, yes.
Did you hear Bob Giordano's testimony about the increased number in vehicle miles that are projected to be traveling and individual trips that are going to be traveling in Missoula?
I listened to his testimony. I was not paying real close attention at that time.
You'd agree with me then that there's going to be more people using transportation services in Missoula between now and 2025?
Yes, I would.
It's a relatively significant number.
As it, if his numbers are correct, and I'm sure he's, he's a very educated, learned man in the transportation business, and sounds like a lot of work went into that plan of theirs. I would think that yes, the population is going to grow close to what they projected.
If you you done any study to determine whether the addition of another either single car carrier or a carrier with 2 cars perhaps that operates on hybrid vehicles is going to impact your revenues?
I have not done a study, no.
Can you tell me of an instance when the Montana Public Service Commission has granted an additional authority in the town that has resulted in the original carrier cutting shifts? laying
Objection,
people off?
relevance, and speculation.
The question is whether he could tell of an instance, and I'm going to allow the question.
Yeah, I'm not aware of one. I don't know. There's none in this town. This is the town I'm most familiar with, and I'm not familiar with anyone here. There may have been another one in another city, but I'm not aware of it.
Mr. Schaefer, I remind you, this is your witness and you're relying on his expertise.
Thank you. You're planning on adding a hybrid vehicle. Have you purchased that vehicle?
No, I've not paid for it, no.
Okay. And so you have admitted that there's a demand for fuel-efficient taxi service in Missoula.
Well, I think there is.
If one of those people who demands that kind of service calls Yellow Cab and they end up getting one of your Chevy Caprices that gets 12 to 15 miles to the gallon, is there need or demand for fuel-efficient taxi service being met?
If the vehicle's not picking them up, it's going to be picking somebody else up. So I think we're helping to be part of the solution rather than part of the problem by operating that vehicle.
I would agree with that. My question is, will that person with that individual need, if the Chevy Caprice comes to pick them up, will their individual need be satisfied?
If that's their need, that they have to be transported solely in a hybrid vehicle, and we show up in a Chevy Caprice, no, their need will not be met at that time.
I have no further questions.
Briefly, if I may.
Okay, recross-examine.
Now, when you say that there's a demand for hybrids, do you mean that people have requested hybrids and you've heard that testimony today?
No, in the testimony I heard today, I heard there's a demand. We have not had people call up and ask us if, we had a hybrid vehicle for them to be transported.
So would you agree that you've heard today that there'd be a preference for hybrids?
Yes.
And as the population increases in Missoula, will Yellow Cab also increase its operations?
Yes, we will.
And have you done that in the past?
We've done that in the past, and we will do that in the future.
And you're willing to increase your operations to meet the needs of Missoula?
We're willing to do what we have to do to meet the public need.
I have no further questions.
You have one question.
Mr. Gray, just one question I was about to ask, and that was how do your drivers determine whether to ask for fare payment up front or at destination?
Anytime they're not familiar with the customer, they are supposed to get the money up front, especially in nighttime when they're hauling people from bars, because it avoids an often contentious situation.
All right, thank you.
I believe the witness may be excused. Thank you for your testimony, Mr. Gray. We have one more witness from the applicant.
Oh, Wayne Fairchild?
Mr. Fairchild, would you raise your right hand? This is a legal, plainly speaking, because we're a legal proceeding, I have to swear in the witness, and therefore become part of the record. You swear to tell the truth, swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Fairchild, can you tell me what your occupation is?
I'm a river outfitter here in Missoula, Montana. We own Lewis and Clark Trail Ventures.
Okay. And who does your business cater to?
Tourists that come from all over the country and sometimes the world.
Okay. These people are coming into town, do they rely on, how do they get transportation when they come to Missoula?
We take down on average about 2,000 people per year that do various trips with us, and 50% of those people fly into town. Most of the times they get a free shuttle from the hotel they're staying at, and then they go out and do a trip with us, and then when they come back to town, they usually have a day or two after a trip. They don't have transportation.
Okay. So that's for the 1,000 people a year who don't drive to town?
Exactly.
Okay. Have you ever suggested for any of these 1,000 people a year to use Yellow Cab?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
So basically the problem we run into is we get a lot of people come to town, and it's the high use season, basically from Maggot Fest to 1st of October. So it's a high use demand area, a lot of tourists in town. We get off the river, our trip, we get back to town 5, 6 o'clock. During the day, they're always asking where we go for dinner, where do we go do different activities. So we suggest areas in town to go to, and we've tried to get Yellow Cab over to our place to pick up guests, and over the years, it doesn't work out just because the time wait was, you know, we got tourists in town, they don't want to wait 35 minutes or 45 minutes just to get a ride during dinner time. So we end up, I own 7 vans and 4 buses and two pickups, so I'm more than happy to lend my van to a client and their family to travel around town, because we know to the point where the taxi service just cannot provide that service for them.
Just having to lend your business vehicles to your guests, does that put a strain on your business?
Not so much a strain, it's just kind of inconvenient. Sometimes it's my own personal vehicle to go home at evening or something, but you know, it's kind of a hassle that they got to use our car and they can't get a taxi.
Would it be a liability issue for your business?
Yeah, it would be a liability issue, because, you know, I'm trusting these people to go out in my vehicle to drive. You know, I've been just nice enough to let them drive my vehicles around town. And if they were to get in a wreck or something like that, it would be a big liability to my business.
Okay. So, at this point, after your experience with Yellow Cab, you still recommend your clients to call Yellow Cab?
We're at the point, it's like, look, don't even try calling them. It's busy time of year. It's, can't do it. And, you know, the population getting bigger, like we just talked about, and tourists are here, and the state of Montana pays a lot of advertising to get these people here. I think there's a reasonable point where we need to provide them transportation, and so I lend them my vehicles.
Thank you. Rob, any further questions?
Any costs?
Yes. So you indicated that you haven't used Yellow Cab recently?
Question was, you used them recently?
Yes.
No,
When's the last time you called Yellow Cab?
a couple years ago.
A couple years ago?
Like I said, we're at the point where we don't even call them anymore.
And you haven't?
Nothing against the company personally, we just, over the years, it's, can't get a ride for these people between 5 and 7 o'clock in summer, and you know what this town's like, it's crazy. Between the traffic and the tourists, and that's what this state is thriving on. Tourists, #1 industry, so we got to provide them transportation.
So you wouldn't know what the response time of Yellow Cab has been
Well,
for the last 2 years?
last couple times we called was 45 minutes plus.
And that was 2 years ago?
Yeah.
And so
I'd say 2 to 3 years ago.
Okay, 2 to 3 years ago. So you don't know what the response time's been like in the past 2 to 3 years?
No, because we don't call them anymore. So that'd be lost revenue.
And so, have you had a chance to learn that Mr. Murray's proposed taxi service will have 1 vehicle in operation?
I guess one's better than none.
So would that 1 vehicle be able to meet all the needs of your
Well, I think a startup, I don't know his business plans, but if he's starting up as one business, as a small business, I don't think it'd be wise for a business owner to start off with a fleet of them. So I think their plan would be start small and grow. Isn't that the way to run a business?
And my question is, will that one vehicle be able to meet the demand of your customers?
Yeah, because I'd call them.
It'll meet the demand of all your customers?
Probably not. They'd have to grow to 2, 3, 4, 5 vehicles.
I have no further questions.
Nothing further.
I'm just curious about,
Okay.
if I can ask you a question, I'm just curious about something. And the cab business in Missoula, Montana is, it would appear, as you think about it, is significantly different than it is, say, in Chicago or Minneapolis. In that, in those cities, there's a concentration of people in a specific area that the cabs generally circulate in, and they're available.
Right. We'd like to see that downtown Missoula.
Do you think that that's economically possible?
Yes. Coming from a business that operates seasonal too, I don't even operate seasonal, I operate from April to October. We close our doors. There's 20 outfitters on Alberton Gorge. That business is spread around. One day we might have one guy working because the demand is there. The next day we have 20 guys working. I think the taxi companies can figure out when there's a high demand and put more taxis on the street. See what I'm saying? So, if you have 5 taxis and you got a busy season from 6 months a year, you got 5 taxi drivers going. Come November, you're running only 2. So you take your insurance off that vehicle, you take your people off payroll, you can run a business that way.
That they're responding to people who are calling from an area of many square miles. I mean, how would you concentrate those in an area to the point where you would have, say, 5-minute response times for every single call?
Probably can't do it, that's why there's probably a need for another taxi company. Personally, I'm just talking about the high season downtown Missoula area. And my personal experience is we can't get a taxi for some of our guests. And for economics, I think a business could survive when you run your business correctly. If 20 outfitters can run on the Alberton Gorge and survive year after year, they can be done with an hour taxi service. Stop.
Okay. Did we correct? Thank you very much for your testimony.
Okay.
Kershaw. And I think we have arrived at the end of testimony, is that correct?
Not in my case.
And I have one witness to call, Commissioner.
Witness. Okay. Would you call your witness, Mr.?
That'll be you.
Swear that the testimony you're about to give is true to the best of your truth.
Yes, I do.
State your name, please.
My name is Brian Parks.
Brian, could you tell the commission what your occupation is?
My occupation is I'm owner-operator of Medicab and Mountain Express Taxi.
And have you objected to Green Taxi's application for motor carrier authority?
Yes, I have.
And does their requested authority conflict with your authority?
Yes, it does.
And what authority do you have under Medicab?
To transport non-emergency medical and wheelchair patients to and from all their medical appointments.
And how would the grant of authority to Green Taxi affect the value of your business?
It would decrease the value of my business.
How would it affect the revenue?
It would decrease the revenue.
Would it have any effect on your employees?
Yes, it would have an effect on my employees.
What would that effect be?
Less revenue, less business would result in layoffs.
Would that affect the amount of vehicles on the road of Medicab?
Yes, it would.
And how would this harm to Medicab affect the Missoula public?
There wouldn't be as many employees or as many vehicles to transport the public to and from all their medical needs. So there would be harm in the general public.
Do Do you feel you're currently meeting the public need?
Oh, yes, I am currently meeting the public need,
And if additional need is determined, are you willing to meet that need?
definitely.
And have you done that in the past?
Yes, I have.
Such as?
Add on extra vehicles and extra personnel.
You also added wheelchair transportation?
I saw a need for wheelchair transportation in the community, and I added that wheelchair vehicle.
What's your opinion of Yellow Cab?
Yellow Cab, from what I've heard, does a very good job. It's a demanding job. It's a business that changes day by day, and I haven't heard anything bad about Yellow Cab.
Do some of your customers also use Yellow Cab?
Yes, they have.
And have they voiced any concerns?
No, they haven't.
Do you feel that Yellow Cab's meeting the public need?
I definitely feel that Yellow Cab is meeting the public need.
Do you feel they're willing and capable to meet any additional need?
Yes, I do.
Do you believe that if there is a public need for additional service, it can be met as well by existing carriers such as yourself and Yellow Cab
Yes,
outside
I do.
rate taxi? No further questions.
Cross.
Do you have an interest in Yellow Cab?
No, I don't.
Do you anticipate having any interest in Yellow Cab?
No, I don't.
Have you discussed it with anybody?
Not that I recall.
Okay. Regarding the scope of authority for your business, it's true, isn't it, that Mr. Murray's authority, if granted, would only conflict with that with your authority to the extent that he was picking up prearranged medical, psychiatric appointments, people with wheelchairs, correct?
Not only prearranged, but anybody that just calls on a whim that needs to be transported to a medical appointment.
Okay. So if you picked up anybody else in Missoula, that wouldn't conflict with your authority?
If it wasn't for medical purposes, it would not.
Is it true that 90% of Medicab's customers have their service arranged and paid for by a contract with the government agency?
Where'd you come up with 90%?
Your lawyer's response to discovery?
Okay. I was just curious where you came up with it. It is about 90%.
Okay.
Yeah, we try not to ask questions.
Mr. Schaefer answered it, so.
I'll just answer that kind of guy. Well, is that accurate?
It's pretty accurate.
90%, okay. Can you explain to me how you secured that contract?
It's through the state of Montana.
Do you have to qualify for that contract somehow or other?
Well, yes, you do. You have to come into compliance.
Okay. And would Mr. Murray operating hybrid cabs in Missoula be able to come in compliance and qualify for your contract?
I think hybrid or gas vehicle is moot as far as that goes. If he opened up his service and started transporting medical appointments, then yes, it would harm my business.
My question is, would he qualify, just operating a typical sedan, or do you have to have any sort of particular vehicle to qualify for the contracts you have? Does that have to be wheelchair accessible?
Well, there's two different provider numbers there. There's a wheelchair provider number and a regular sedan provider number.
Okay.
As long as the cars are safe and reliable and meet the state's qualifications, then yes, he could probably secure that.
For the non-wheelchair part?
Yes.
Okay. And as long as he didn't try to qualify and go after that contract, he would not conflict with 90% of your business?
True.
Okay. Thank you. No further questions?
Nothing further from me?
Have we done all the post-hearing? I think
Could we open it back up for public comment if there is any at this time, Commissioner?
we can, sure. You have,
Can I ask a question about public comment?
sure.
Just what is the value and what is the weight of public comment?
Montana Code annotated requires the Public Service Commission or any other public agency to allow opportunity for public comment. And the Well, the motivations for that are up to your local legislator, so you can ask him.
Okay, thanks.
Is there other,
I'd like to read a letter.
and you are,
My name is Coy Gray, and this is a letter from one of the cab drivers who works at night and is sleeping right now. He wanted me to read this.
we will allow the letter to be introduced as public comment and not as support testimony.
This is dated May 22nd, 2007, to the Public Service Commission. My name is Robert Bowlby, and I've been a driver for Yellow Cab of Missoula since December 1st, 2003. And I am writing this to give you some insight into the problems and perils of driving taxi, in Missoula. On any given night that I work, most of my fares have been drinking, very often excessively. Nightly, I encounter customers that cannot or will not provide the correct pickup address or destination address. Customers that are in overcrowded bars that have been overserved. I yell taxi every step or two as I struggle through the bar and try to find out from the employee who is in need of the cab. Sometimes things work out well and other times not. At times I cannot find my customer or find my customer passed out or find my customer and they have urinated, regurgitated, or defecated on themselves. Obviously, if they have done these things, and I've run across some that have done all four, I have to refuse service to them. I've encountered customers that I know for a fact have not waited more than 20 minutes, and they swear they have waited more than an hour. I've had them look at the call log on their phones or had them talk to the bartender to prove to them that they had not waited that long. But it can be extremely hard to convince people that are intoxicated that they are mistaken. I've picked up customers that gave me the wrong destination, for example, the Super 8 North instead of the Super 8 South, the Days Inn downtown instead of the Days Inn at I-90 and 93 junction. I get customers that will call in for 4 people to go to one address, and when I get them picked up, they want to go to 4 different places. At times, the customer calls in to be picked up at one bar and wanders off to another bar. It does not matter to them that we could not find them at the pickup point that they told us. Then they call back for another pickup, and to them, we are at fault for not knowing that they changed locations. I get to bars to find out that a customer no longer wants the cab, and they did not have the common courtesy to cancel. All of these problems lead to overly intoxicated people having a bad impression of Yellow Cab, but not due to anything that Yellow Cab has done wrong. Also, it makes the customers that are not hard to find, etc., wait longer. I have been spit on, verbally and physically assaulted. This also makes the customers wait longer. On the rare occasion, I have had some mechanical problems with the cab, but any mechanical or safety issues that I've notified Mr. Gray about have been corrected quickly. Mr. Gray has even had window tint removed from my cab when I mentioned that in passing that I felt the tint was decreasing my visibility. Mr. Gray seeks feedback from myself and other employees quite often because as a company and as a driver, we are continually trying to refine our service so that we can serve all of our customers better. Please keep in mind that most of the customers I serve have been drinking, a large percentage have over-imbibed, and intoxication leads to a skewed perception of reality. I know firsthand that Yellow Cab provides a safe, efficient service that we are continually striving to improve. Thank you for your time and consideration. Robert J. Bowlby. He includes an email address and a telephone number. Thank you.
Mr. Gray, I hope you're providing some of your night drivers with opportunities for recreation. They're showing signs of being overstressed. You have a question?
Can I make a public comment too?
You have testified already as a proponent of the petition, so that is your one bite at the apple.
You can't do it as a citizen.
We have had conversation with the attorneys about post-hearing schedule, is that correct?
Yes.
Are there any other matters to come?
Just for the record, I want to make sure this is correct. The attorneys agree that we have established a post-hearing briefing schedule where the initial simultaneous opening briefs would be due June 29th and reply briefs July 20th. Is that correct,
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Correct.
Okay. That's all I have.
Seeing no further matters come before the commission, this meeting is adjourned. The time is 5:05 PM, and we are adjourned.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.